Hello, I'm Stephen Peary, author of The Dynamics of Gender and Life, Timeless Principles of Quantum, Fractal and Natural Phenomena and Human Social Dynamics. Now, I've received feedback that the subtitle, the Timeless Principles subtitle, is complicated. It's too confusing and tends to put people off. So I'll briefly explain what the book is about and why I believe it is of value, and at least in my experience, of significant benefit, to understand and utilise the concepts within the book. Now, after that, I'll go through the index as a means to highlight the many diverse subjects covered, not least of which, as one might expect by the title, is that of the many issues regarding gender in our current culture, including, for example, the impetus toward what is called woke or cancel culture, the impetus toward identity politics, critical race theory, gender fluidity, the gender pay gap, and so on. Now, I'll be explaining my work using some basic principles from the field of quantum physics. These quantum principles, as I will cover in much more detail in this and other videos, are immensely useful in understanding all aspects of our everyday lives. And by saying all, I and others have yet to find any exceptions to the application of these principles. Okay, so what's the book about? Primarily, it provides a map, a dynamic model of how life functions. It's a dynamic model that fits our experiences, as I like to say, like a glove. The model that I'll cover in detail is one in which everything, and indeed every one, is engaged in an ongoing, dynamic, cyclical, interactive dance between possibility and actual physical reality. Possibility and actuality form what I call an inseparable duality, a paradox that is echoed in the quantum world as the wave-particle duality, considered the cornerstone of quantum physics. Waves being fields of possibility, particles being the actual physical stuff that comprise such things as proteins, people, and planets. Understanding this inseparable duality of possibility and physical reality is central to creativity, well-being, achievement, and so on. The dynamic of an inseparable duality is perhaps best likened to two wings of an aircraft or two wings of a butterfly. Both wings are necessary to fly. One without the other is not of much use, and like two wings, they operate in a sense together, at the same time. Understanding this is a key component in creativity, in that creativity involves a very personal, intuitive relationship with one's future. More on that later. I'll digress for a moment to explain that in my work I detail how other inseparable dualities are integral to everyday life, such as separateness and togetherness, individuals and collectives, masculine and feminine, parts and wholes, as in gestalts, and, in regards to quantum and chromosome dynamics, same and different, as shown in the butterfly diagram. I'll be providing much more detail and context why these correlations are meaningful and very useful in understanding gender. Suffice to say, right at this point, where chromosomes are different, as in male XY humans, the males tend to be more different, more individualistic than females, and that's across all human cultures. Males tend to be, far more often, the loners, the mavericks, the weirdos, and the outlaws. Just look inside the vast majority of jails. As Camille Paglia has often said, there is no female Mozart because there is no female Jack the Ripper. Dr. Helena Cronin reports, quote, "Among males, the variance, that is, the difference between the best and the worst, and the most and the least, or whatever it is, tallest and shortest, is far greater than among females. Females tend to cluster around the mean," end quote. The converse occurs among male emperor penguins that have the same ZZ chromosomes. They huddle together in the Antarctic winter to incubate and nurture their young and, just like human females, produce a bodily secretion to feed their young. So when it is claimed that the behaviour of men and boys is purely a learned or social construct, that is, it's entirely due to nurture, I think it is pertinent and quite prudent to ask, what about the penguins? The diagram gives some initial understanding of one, and I say again one, of the factors driving the gender pay gap. Across all cultures, women tend to be feminine, that is, group or relationship orientated, and as a result tend to be more agreeable than men. In a tightly integrated, close-knit group, tribe or team, there's not much room or tolerance for mavericks, contrarians, or disagreeable types. Being agreeable is important to peace, harmony, and unity within said groups, tribes, or teams. However, as Dr. Jordan Peterson and other researchers have explained, being disagreeable is correlated with higher incomes. At first glance, it might seem prudent for women seeking higher income to be more disagreeable, that is, to be more masculine. But if being more masculine, that is, disagreeable, is achieved at the expense of being feminine, even with higher income, it is pertinent to consider how that might impact the quality of relationships with friends and family, and, most importantly, with one's intuitive self. More on that later. This example is to highlight how a bias toward one wing is beneficial in some circumstances, but, like one wing flapping, on its own, overall, in a holistic sense, will often be suboptimal. So when I mention the term inseparable duality, perhaps it's best to think two wings flapping or two wings working together are uplifting. Anyway, let's refocus on the possible actual dynamic. I've produced a diagram to display that relationship. Particles are correlated with the right wing past simply because by the time we see, feel, hear, smell, or taste anything physical, it's already in the past. It has already happened. Similar to hearing thunder after the actuality of the lightning strike. As physicist Sir Lawrence Bragg explained, quote, "Everything that has already happened is particles, everything in the future is waves," end quote. Let's do a simple thought experiment. Take a moment and mentally choose a number. Any number, it's not important which number you choose. Some of you might have chosen the number 7, or for those who enjoyed the work of Douglas Adams, 42. Others might have chosen, 167, 298, whatever. The range of numbers from which you could choose is never-ending, unlimited, endless. Yet you chose a number, and that number is a particular quantity. It's not infinite, it's finite. So that's the first, arguably self-evident principle of life. At any moment, we're choosing from a never-ending field of possibilities one actual, lived, finite reality. Even not choosing is still a choice in that you are choosing to allow others and the world at large to choose for you. As to that earlier mention of the gender pay gap, women can choose to be disagreeable and thereby negotiate higher incomes. Men can choose peace, harmony, and unity by choosing to be amenable, compliant, agreeable. Choice is central to all aspects of life and not just for humans, as I'll cover in much more detail in other videos. In the diagram, the left side, the left wing, is the future, feminine, open, unlimited possibilities. You might have heard it said that it's a woman's prerogative to change her mind. Well, that's a natural consequence of being in the midst of all those unending, fluid possibilities. The right wing, the pointy end of the diagram, closes down to the highly focused, decisive, singular, detailed, hard reality of life, devoid of options, alternatives, and maybes. Which is why masculine people, not necessarily men, are often single-minded and prefer to do things in a serial fashion, one step at a time. Being highly focused, ignoring or saying no to distractions or the pleadings of others, is beneficial in some circumstances, such as being productive at work. Steve Jobs, co-founder of Apple, emphasized the ability to say no to various product developments was vital to the company's success. On the other hand, being open, flexible and agreeable, left-wing, is beneficial to creativity, adapting to changing circumstances, and, as mentioned, enabling peace, harmony and unity. Once again, both wings working together is optimal in overall terms. The right wing is conservative, conserving the past by keeping traditions, etc. Right-wing orientated people are naturally suspicious of ideas because creative ideas, which come out of left field, the intuitive left field, the left wing, threaten to undermine or disrupt one's singular, stable, fixed, solid, dependable and predictable worldview and reality. People heavily orientated toward the right wing typically see the world in terms of hard either-or, right-wrong distinctions, with little interest or appreciation of shades of grey nuances. The reason for this is quite simple. We may have many possible choices available, such as which way to go at a crossroad junction, but only one can be physically travelled at any point in time. So at, say, a crossroad, it's one or the other that can be chosen, not both. For that reason, gender fluidity is anathema to right-wing orientated people, in that you're either male or female, one or the other. Even those born with XXY or even XXXY chromosomes are still born male. Now, one wing cannot and does not exist without the other any more than a community can exist without people or a forest without trees. In other words, a bias toward left-wing collectivism or right-wing individualism will induce a reliance on the complementary side. For example, left-wing orientated people who are group-orientated will typically behave in a right-wing fashion by seeing right-wrong divisions in terms of their tribe or their group being right while other tribes or groups are deemed wrong, bad, and are thus excluded. The irony of the supposedly left-wing woke or cancel culture is that to exclude others who are not woke is quintessentially right-wing masculine behaviour. Furthermore, the greater the bias toward the left wing, the greater the recourse to pernicious right-wing behaviour, as happened in the past in various communist societies, wherein millions of people were killed or starved to death because they were deemed whatever, wrong, bad, too intelligent, too outspoken, etc. Conversely, hard right-wing orientated people will typically emphasise patriotism, which is simply allegiance to one's national tribe. Perhaps not obvious from the diagram is that free speech is reliant on right-wing individualism. More on that later. Now, the intent of my work is not to label various behaviours as wrong or even right. Instead, it is to reveal how various behaviours that are biased toward either collectivism or individualism are relevant and meaningful within certain limiting contexts, within the deeper, broader context of the Toa, that is, the totality of one and all phenomena have purpose and meaning. This will be especially evident when in other videos I reveal how an underlying quantum interconnectedness pervades, underlies and enables all events, phenomena and behaviours. As this is an introductory video, I'll be providing additional material to give ample justification for the correlations displayed in the various diagrams. Like any tool, map or model, it is the choice and responsibility of the user as to how it is used. I am most decidedly, not a therapist. I avoid giving advice as to how the model should be used. Also, if my Toa, the theory and totality of one and all, which is a self-organizing systems model, is not considered a good or useful model, then I encourage those interested to find or create a better one. For those in Australia interested in reading further, my work is available in the National Library of Australia and the State Library of New South Wales. The book is also available for international delivery via online purchase. More information is available at procreative.com.au.